Happy Sunday. Sitting here with my decaf coffee. Wah wah. Feeling really good today though. Had an extra 5 minutes on my morning meditation, so I'm feeling very light and high vibrational. Also, another beautiful sunny day, not a cloud in the sky. Spring is about to come. I love spring. It is my personal new year as an Aries, but I feel like it should be everybody's new year, truthfully. Anyway, I wanted to talk today about a few themes that were coming through for me this week. It's really interesting when recurring themes happen in the span of a week where you keep getting the messaging either through reading or conversations that you're having or whatever, because it's really like the universe's way of getting a message to you. And like you have to like perk your ears up a little bit to make sure that you hear it. Excuse me. So, okay, there's three themes. The first one is your desire to be seen or validated is keeping you from being great. Okay. Theme number two is learning the balance between consistency and capacity. And the last theme is betting on yourself requires discomfort. If you're not willing to be uncomfortable, you're not going to progress or grow. So all three of these themes are very intertwined. And I'll just talk a little bit about like how they came up for me this week. So the first theme about your desire to be seen. I see so much of this in younger people or people who are still in the early stages of learning how to believe in themselves. A good example is Substack Notes. So Substack Notes, if you're unfamiliar, is basically Substack's Twitter, right? So there's a lot of people on there who are readers and or writers. So the quality of the content is, I think, less chaotic than Twitter. People are not just, they're not doing a lot of that on there. And again, it's readers and writers, so it's people who are not just into clickbait or reading headlines or, just want to be outraged for the sake of being outraged. However, there's been a new crop of people who've come onto this app from other apps, and they're kind of taking some of this like social media validation mentality over to the app with them. So it's a lot of fixation on subscribers, engagement. What's the point of writing if no one's reading it? Why are people why aren't they opening my email? Or, I got X amount of subscribers. Oh my God, da 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 da. And I think that I understand why, people are that way. At the end of the day, we create art for an audience. We want to resonate with people. We want to feel seen, right? However, I think that a lot of people don't realize how the social media landscape of virility and a lot of people don't realize the social media landscape of virality, going viral, and validation influences how they perceive their own work and its value. Because we're so used to seeing people be rewarded and propped up for honestly anything. Like I there's been TikToks where I was just yapping about some random shit and I get 100,000 views, and I'm just like, really, this was the thing? And so you can't really predict what's gonna do what, but also there's still this fixation because it's like, if you're not being seen, if you're not getting the followers, if you're not getting the likes, if you're not getting the comments, then what are you doing it for? And I always try to like keep in mind that like this is still a relatively new concept of audiences directly engaging with the writer's work. Like there used to be a time where like the only engagement a writer got with their work, if you were a successful writer, is, a signing, a lecture, reviews in a newspaper. It's very rare that people would talk directly to a writer. They might send fan mail, but that's still not reflective of all of the people in the world who could possibly be reading this person's work. And not to mention, like, there's so many writers who are still read years, decades, centuries after they've been dead. And I don't think a lot of people keep that in mind because they feel like, oh, I'm in this social media ecosystem, and so I have to play by these rules, and I have to not even just play by these rules, but I have to measure my work by these benchmarks that have been set within this space. And I think it's so important to take yourself out of that. Take yourself out of that and just have a more intimate, direct relationship with your craft. And understand that, like, each step that you make, each post that you put out that maybe not enough people are reading, well, not enough to you, not enough people are reading or engaging with, is part of your practice, part of sharpening your tool, your craft, and getting better at what it is. And I think when you focus more on that, then naturally more people find your work and resonate with it and want to engage with it, right? Another example was I was talking with a friend who recently had a falling out with a friend / creative peer. And to protect this person's identity, let's just say that they were a writer. And this writer was like, I'm going to win a Pulitzer this year. And my friend was like, kind of trying to bring this writer down to earth, because for context, this writer's work is more akin to like a Terry McMillan, you know, Eric Jerome Dickey, Omar Tyree, and there's no shade to those authors. I love those books. I grew up reading those books. But those are not authors that win Pulitzers. They're not the Toni Morrisons of the world, and that's fine. There's a lane for that. And so this friend was basically just trying to say, you know, it's really, really hard to win a Pulitzer. And their friend got very defensive and was like, I don't want to be friends with someone who's trying to humble me, and said some like crazy below the belt stuff to this person. And there definitely are friends who will try, not friends, right? Who will try to humble you, for sure. But there's a difference between being humbled and someone who's trying to keep you grounded and realistic. And how you find that difference is keeping that ego in check. Because I feel like what my friend probably could have asked, and I told my friend this, is maybe just ask that person why that's important. Why is that important? Sometimes instead of just like stating opinions, it's better to just ask people a question that will get them to think a little bit deeply about what it is that is driving whatever it is that they're doing or saying. Because if you ask that question, then it's like, oh, because you want the accolades, because you want the perceived level up and notoriety and money and wealth that comes with that? Or is it because you're trying to create work that is worthy of that? And if you're trying to create work that's worthy on that, focus on that. Focus on that. I just think a lot of people like to take shortcuts. A lot of people think that if I present and package this in a specific way, then someone is going to perceive it as great. But what gets perceived as great is not approached in that way. It's usually something that people didn't even realize would be received in that way because they were so focused on locking in and making sure that their attention and their work was coming through very strong. They were very heart-centered in their approach to making the work. And I think that's what's missing with a lot of the content and art and media that is coming out right now. And I don't personally think that a lot of people who approach it this way are going to have a lot of longevity because you're not really locked in. You ain't really in it. You're not really in it like that. Like, I would be surprised if you're still doing this thing 5 to 10 years from now, because there's a certain level of grit required to be an artist or a creative of any kind. So that gets me to kind of my next points, which is consistency and capacity are very important to balance. This gets into like kind of what I was talking about last week with like detaching from outcomes, but a lot of people don't even want to try because they don't have the capacity to do it on the scale or the level of greatness that they think they can. It's much better for you to do even a small step towards what it is you're trying to go towards on a consistent basis than to not start at all because you don't think that you can, you're gonna be, I don't know, Michelangelo or like Michelangelo or like, I don't know, Basquiat or whoever, like, because you don't think that you're going to be heralded. You just don't try at all. And this was coming up for me a lot this week because, like, for example, I have an ideal morning routine when I have the luxury to have a slow morning. And it includes waking up, drinking my bedside water, not looking at any devices. I have a digital alarm clock. I keep my phone in the living room. I don't even look at that. Then I, wash my face, brush my teeth, do my morning affirmations. I'll come and do my morning stretches. I'll journal 3 morning pages of just stream of consciousness just to dump my brain. And then I'll do 10 minutes of meditation. I even have this little kitchen timer because I don't want to have to like look at my phone to set my timer. I really try to let my phone be the last thing I touch. I don't touch it until after like my breakfast has been made because that is what helps ground me. However, that's like a pie in the sky morning routine that's not realistic to do every single day because I'm an adult and I got shit going on. So instead, there are days where maybe I can only meditate. Maybe I can only stretch. Maybe I can only do affirmations. But it's better that I did something small to ground myself than to just be like, fuck it, I can't do any of this. I'm going to go run to go get, a double espresso that I know is going to send me through the roof and scarf down a muffin that's going to make me feel all sluggish. And then I've started my day like this. This is my anxiety pose because this is where I carry a lot of my stress. And even if I just taken that one step, that would have at least told me that it was okay to just slow down, So it can apply to a lot of many things, but definitely checking your consistency and capacity is important. The last thing is betting on yourself requires discomfort. Okay, I'm gonna say it again. If you are not willing to be uncomfortable, you are not willing to progress. So last week I was talking about how I had faced a financial roadblock because I need to get my spec commercial edited and colored, and I'm in my slow season and I just didn't want to spend the money. I was having a conversation with my friend Elle. Hi, Elle. And she was just like, what would it look like if you just spent the money? And I'm like, I could spend it, but I don't know. Da, 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 da. And, I have job prospects lined up and all this stuff. And she was like, so it sounds like you're just in your own way. And I'm like, because when I actually started to think about it, there's been a lot of instances in my life where I've had to make a really big financial risk in order to get to the next level. The key things that was when I moved to Chicago in 2012, I had $2,000 and no job lined up. I landed on my feet. I had a job within the week that I moved there because I had planted seeds. I had met with staffing agencies. I had done the work, the back work. And the same thing happened in 2016 when I moved to New York. I had $5,000, no job lined up. Same thing, landed on my feet. And a lot of people don't realize that being an artist, being a creative person is a spiritual practice. I'm going to say that over and over again. And people are like, oh, that's woo-woo. No, because when you think about where ideas come from, where the fuck do they come from? You're not always just willing your mind to come up with an idea. They come from some other source. And you have to understand that you are walking hand in hand with that source on your journey. And when you're willing to take big risks, you're telling that source, I trust you. And I trust myself. And I trust that this is the path that I'm on and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I spent that money. And I'm going to make it back. I will. But all that to say, This is what you need to be vibrating towards. All of that, all of the creativity and imagination and dreaming and all of that has to be grounded through heart, not through simply mind and ego and all of this external shit. When you find yourself getting fixated with that, you need to check back in with here. And it was really interesting because after I had that conversation with Elle, I was reading this book. I'm gonna keep quoting this until I'm almost done. I'm like halfway there. But there was this page in here that was talking about thoughts and habits not conducive to the work. I'm not gonna read all of these. This is like the whole list. But I'm gonna stop at the one that stopped me in my tracks, okay? All right. Believing you're not good enough. Feeling you don't have the energy it takes. Mistaking adopted rules for absolute truths. Not wanting to do the work. Laziness. Not taking the work to its highest expression. Settling. Having goals so ambitious that you can't begin. Thinking you can only do your best work in certain conditions. Requiring specific tools or equipment to do the work. Abandoning a project as soon as it gets difficult. Feeling like you need permission to start or move forward. And this is the one that stopped me. Letting a perceived need for funding, equipment, or support get in the way. Heard you. We got this. And you do too. Enjoy your week.